All right, here it is. Your first steroid cycle you should ever take. Check it out. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is actually your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever question is on your mind, be it bodybuilding, be it non-bodybuilding, it is all on the table. Bodybuilding, diet, nutrition, supplementation. Of course, we are now into that point of the IFBB Pro calendar where we are about 9.5 weeks out to the Olympia. So now the dance card is starting to fill up. We have the Texas Pro this upcoming weekend. I'll be there. Chris Aceto will be there. Armin Adibi, I'm going to check with him to see if he's going to be there. I've spoken to some
in the show.
Andrew Jack, Nathan Epler.
No, what I'm saying is Armin is going to be in the show. He's competing.
What?
Did you know that? Yes, Armin is
That.
competing. Yes.
He is?
I'm doing his diet, so I should know. So he's jumping in.
Really?
Yeah.
Breaking news right here. So Armin Adibi. What class is he competing in?
He's going to be heavyweight.
Heavyweight, right? Okay. Very cool.
So
there you go.
Talk about
Armin Adibi will be in the show. You know what? We're going to get footage of Armin Adibi on stage. This is going to be great. Yeah. We're going to get him as he comes off stage. We'll interview him the whole bit, whatever. And then, of course, the pro show for the men's open. You have Andrew Jack, who's now the defending two-time champion of the Texas Pro. Nathan Epler, who was sensational a couple of weeks ago in Chicago. Felix Norman turned pro a couple of years ago. Lewis Breed, big hulking Brit. He's going to be in that show as well. Chris Aceto's guy, Yishan Cheng. He's going to be in the show. Jordan Hutchinson, who just finished third in Tampa. So good show. I mean, Andrew Jack obviously is going to be the pre-installed favorite. But it's going to be a good show. So I think this is going to be a good glimpse of what's to come as far as future talent in the open class. But nonetheless, we're going to be there, and we're going to have full wall-to-wall coverage of the show, and it'll be a good time. But let's go right to the questions. The first two questions, of course, on the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question is about stretching. Now, this is a topic that you do talk about quite often as far as your own daily regimen. How many stretching exercises, sets, and second hold counts should we do so we don't damage tendons? Now, I'm not sure. Maybe if you want to clarify, or maybe if you want to get into maybe like a pre-workout stretching routine.
I always stretched at the end of the workout. The only time I stretched prior to the workout would be when I did legs, because for some reason, when I did legs, I just felt like I needed to stretch out my pelvic, girdle and everything like that, and my hamstrings, because otherwise I felt like I couldn't get a full range of motion when I would come down with squats and leg press and stuff like that. So what I would do is I would sit on the floor and I would stretch for about 10 minutes. Nothing like super crazy, but I'm very flexible. So like all I have to do is kind of get the muscles warmed up a little, and then I'm moving it pretty well. For the other body parts, I would stretch while I was doing it. So if I'm doing like chest, I'm kind of like, have my arm against the machine and I'm stretching my pec muscles in between sets because, you warm up light. As far as my regimen now, I tell people this is pretty easy to do, but I have a whole nightly regimen. So I work like frantically. And then at some point I say, okay, I'm done working for the night. Predominantly, I might still check a few emails, but I'm done. I go sit in front of the TV. I put on whatever, series I'm watching at the moment for about an hour. And I will sit on the floor on a rug and I'll stretch. I'll stretch for about 10 minutes. I'll do my abs while I'm watching TV. And then I'll usually eat my last meal. After that, I'll take my melatonin, my Somalize, and then about a half hour after that, I go to bed. So that's my because you have to have like a de-stressing cool down at night. And I feel like stretching really kind of makes you feel good. It relaxes your body. And if you do it at night and get into like a routine of doing it and it helps you fall asleep at night, you don't have to worry about doing it at the gym. Like I said, the only time I would ever like worry about like actively stretching at the gym was when I was lifting heavy and I was doing legs. So if you're doing, a hard leg workout and you're going to be squatting and something like that, you should probably definitely get on the floor and do some hurdler stretches and some, split stretches and stuff like that to get those muscles more. Because I see a lot of guys and they just can't go all the way down. And it's because it's a flexibility issue. It's not that they don't want to do a full range of motion. They just don't have the flexibility. So you have to stretch every day. Get in the routine. Like I said, on the days you're not training legs, do the TV at night routine where you're stretching on the floor. It's good to stretch every day. I'm telling you, you'll feel better. Your back won't bother you. Knock on wood. On X-ray, my back looks terrible, but I don't have any pain in my back because I keep everything very well stretched out, and that's the key, I think. So, once again, I used to do yoga classes, like Korean yoga classes for a while. This was back in the early mid-90s, 2000s, excuse me. And sometimes those classes would be like an hour and a half long. And when I would go to the gym after that, I would feel almost too stretched out. I felt like it was impacting my workouts negatively. So yes, you can stretch too much. You don't want to be stretching for an hour and a half in a yoga class and then go work out. But it's not a bad thing to stretch. Just you don't want to do them back to back like that.
Second question. Again, these first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. This is a question that I know Lee Priest will be chuckling once he hears this, but again, these are the kind of this is the kind of forum where people come for these kind of questions, especially if they haven't already been on cycle yet. So a basic cycle for someone that has never taken gear.
Look, a lot of people ask me, what the best first cycle is, and it really is. It depends on what your goals are. But you know what? My first cycle I ever did was, and here's my rationale was, if I'm going to do a cycle and I've never done anything, why would I take anything that has side effects? Because the drugs that are stronger have side effects. But I said, you know what? I'm going to grow from anything I do right now. So I might as well take drugs that I don't have to worry about PCT, and I don't have to worry about shutting down my own endocrine system, severely. I don't have to worry about like severe side effects and gynecomastia. So I did Primobolan and Winstrol. I've told you this before. I've done, it was like 100 milligrams of Primobolan like 2 to 3 times a week. I don't remember what it was back then. And 50 milligrams of Winstrol 3 times a week. So it was again every other day type of thing. And I did that for 12 weeks, and I put on like, seriously, like I probably gained about 15 pounds of body weight, and probably I'd say 12 of that was solid because you don't really hold any water from Primobolan and Winstrol. I got really good results. I was very happy. People thought I looked like I was on, 10 Anadrols a day because I was so lean anyway. And, I wasn't big. I was only about I think I was like 225 when I first started, 220 when I first started taking stuff. So I went up, but you gain 10, 15 pounds in the gym. People notice. And I had no side effects. I had zero. I didn't even do a PCT after. I just stopped it, and that was it. That was fine. And I think I took like 8 weeks off or something like that, and then I did another cycle. I think I did that time. I think the second cycle I did some Deca and some Winstrol or something like that. There was no Anavar around in the early 90s, so I never used that. But Anavar is so weak. As a man, it's kind of expensive, and you don't really get a lot of bang for its buck. It's great for women. So, I would probably nowadays stick with like Winstrol and Masteron or something like that, or If there is primobolan around, primobolan and winstrol are good first cycles. This way you don't have to worry about, like I said, any side effects. And if you can't get that, and sometimes people don't like to take shots, you can do winstrol pills and anabar pills for cycle. You want to combine two drugs because you're going to get a better effect, a stacking effect from the two drugs. But they don't have to be strong. Grow as much as you can from the weak drugs, and then down the road, if a year or two down the road, you're not responding to them anymore, you want to up the ante a little bit, you can go to equipoise, and some Deca, and then eventually go to testosterone. But there's no rush. You know what I mean? I think people, they do their first cycle, they want to take 1,000 milligrams of testosterone right off the bat. Why do that? You can grow from the weaker drugs. It's only when you can't grow from the weaker drugs anymore that you should consider using the stronger drugs. So you kind of have like a free pass for the first, year or so on stuff where you're going to get no side effects from it. But everyone's different. Some people want to go right off the bat, big bang out of the chute, so to speak. I think it's a waste, but like I said, it's a personal decision.
So again, those first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. We now go to our Instagram and Facebook questions. On Instagram, official_RxMuscle. Facebook, if you're not following us, just search in, type in RxMuscle. Bilal Hamide, could you show us a live presentation on this show on Ask Dave of where you would inject into your ventro glute? The only doctor I trust is you.
I wish. It's funny because Armand, when we were down in Mexico, Armand filmed them giving me stem cell injections like in different areas, and I had to do glute. They had to do glute injections on me, and I was actually like telling, as usual, I was telling the woman where to put the glute injections because I have really big ridgy glute, and I was going to include that in our stem cell video, but I was so horrified with how terrible I look. Like the lighting was terrible. I felt like I looked like my glutes are in good shape, but I just felt like I looked like an old man on the camera. So I said, we're not doing it. But what you want to do is, and I don't know, maybe I can stand up here. You want to get you want the side. You don't want. I'm not going to show you my glute, but here's your glute here. You never want to go in the back because that's where the sciatic nerve runs. You want to do it on the side. So you want to go from the side, and there's a little ridge here, and that's where you inject along that ridge. You don't want to go on the top either. Some people do it right on top here. That's not where either. You want to do it on the ridge, anywhere in there, straight in, and that's the right place to inject. Once again, if you do it in the back of your glute, you risk hitting that sciatic nerve and paralyzing your leg. So you don't want to do that. It's a pretty simple, injection. Like I said, glutes are the biggest muscle in the body. People don't realize that, the gluteus maximus muscles. So you really have a lot to put into. When you start going into smaller muscles, you could kind of miss. You might not get completely in the muscle. And so it's a lot harder. So if you're just starting out, you're better off doing glute injections. It's just a lot easier. Obviously, shoulders are easy because they're right here, but sometimes it can leak out of the shoulder. I would start with glutes. That's always a good idea. Also, I wanted to just say the Dave Palumbo Experience app, which were the questions from before, is my app you can download. It's $29 a month. You get Dave Palumbo as a coach in your back pocket, essentially. It's all my writings, all my videos in one place, all my protocols, off-season, pre-contest cycles, drug cycles, the ketogenic diets on there, my rotation diets, everything's on there. We do a video every single week, a Q&A video, just like Ask Dave, except it's exclusively for the app members. I answer everyone's questions in the app in an open forum so everyone sees everyone's questions and answers. It's a really good learning experience. We put up a workout every week to follow. It's a lot for your money, I know, and a lot of people subscribe to the app. We have a lot of app members. I want to thank you guys because it obviously encourages me to keep doing it, but it's a great learning experience, especially if you can't afford coaching. I have a lot of guys that are that coach me, and they still do the app. So you can do both, but if you can't do coaching for $29, you can get a lot of information on that app. So thanks for the support.
Let's go to Alexander Ruin Training. Is 2 IUs of GH worth taking for recovery purpose if you're in your mid-30s, but only with a few cycles under your belt?
Yeah, I always tell people, people always made fun of the fact that I always said 2 IUs. 2 IUs is a potent dose of GH. If you took it every single day, you're going to get good results from that. You don't need to take 10 IUs of GH a day to get results. Matter of fact, if you do 2 IUs of GH, you get good results and you get very little side effects because you're not causing a tremendous amount of insulin resistance and all that goes along with it. Plus, you're not getting a lot of water and bloating and hand issues with the fingers fall asleep. So, assuming your GH is real, 2 IUs is a really good dose you do. I also want to mention something else. I bought this. I'm always telling people to get blood pressure cuffs. So mine crapped out, and I went on. I know. I always tell everyone there's an app called TEMU, TEMU. These blood pressure cuffs are like $6 on there. If no one has an excuse to not get a blood pressure cuff for $6. And if you want a good one, it's like $12. And you know what? I've been taking my blood pressure thing, and it's very accurate. So if you don't have a blood pressure cuff in your house, I would recommend going on temu.com and picking up the app and downloading it and buying it. They have some great sales, and they're not that they're paying us any advertising. I just like to tell you guys where there's good bargains. Just like I tell you, go to Walmart to get a blood sugar monitor. They're $9 there. So, sometimes, we have to share our little hidden secrets because everyone should have a blood pressure cuff and everyone should have a blood sugar monitor in their house. And you should be testing your blood sugars fasting in the morning. And you should be testing your blood pressure throughout the day because you want to make sure that it's in the normal range. And if it's not, you better get on some blood pressure medication because we don't want to see anything happen to your kidneys long term. There's my rant.
So the last question is about recovery using GH. This one may be more of a preventative measure using Deca. It's from Alex Zardi. 250 mg Deca per week. Is it enough just to lubricate the joints, or is more required? I always used to use 500 mg.
I will tell you this. This might be news to you, but you know what? 100 milligrams of Deca per week will cause an anti-inflammatory effect. You don't even need more than that. I got news for you. I think people think you need a lot of Deca. Yeah, to grow, if you want to get a growth effect from Deca, you need to take 400 milligrams plus per week. But if you want an anti-inflammation effect, you could take 100 milligrams a week, literally, and you will get that anti-inflammatory effect. And I promise you, it doesn't. The more you take, the better it doesn't get. The better it is. You don't need to take a lot of Deca to get anti-inflammation. And here's another question a lot of people ask me. I was asked it today. Does NPP, nandrolone phenylpropionate, which is the faster acting version of Deca, does that, result in a lot of anti-inflammation too? And the answer is no. It doesn't have as much anti-inflammation as the long-acting Deca. I don't know if it's because it's long-acting, the Deca, you get a better anti-inflammatory effect from it, but it just seems to work way, way better. So you can't get the same anti-inflammation from the NPP.
Let's go to so a question about Stimulize from Pipe. So when will Stimulize be back in stock?
Yeah, I kind of dropped the ball on that. I'm such a nutcase when it comes to flavoring systems. Pre-workouts without a flavor system taste like shit. Everyone knows that. And there are some pre-workouts on the market that taste like shit because they use a crappy flavoring system. So when I reformulated Stimulize and added some new little twists to it, it kind of screwed the taste up. So now I'm working on just reflavoring it again. And I drive the flavor guy so crazy that after usually like 10 samples that they send me, they don't send it anymore because they think that, so then I have to call them up and say, what's going on? And I'm like, you guys can't do this. You have to question you have to question their abilities, get their ego involved a little bit. And they're like, no, all right, I'll send you more. And then they'll send me, 5 more samples. And once I get it tweaked perfectly with the flavor, then we're going to release it. It's just, once again, I want you to be able to, drink the stuff and say, hey, this is good. This stuff tastes good. Because if it doesn't taste good, you won't continue to use it. So that's my problem. That's why it took so long for Protolyze to come back out, because they discontinued one of the ingredients, and I was going crazy trying to get that same consistency and flavor. And I think it's actually better than it was before. A lot of people have told me that the new Protolyze that's out with the 7 strains of probiotics in there, our protein pudding, is without a doubt better than what the one was before. And that makes me feel good. And I've been eating it every night. So I'm like, yeah, I think we hit it right. So sometimes taking a little extra time to have a better quality product or a better tasting product, it's worth it. And that's what's going on with Stimuli. So you got to give me another few months on that one just to get the whole thing done.
Let's go to Tom Filipowski. Question about Triple H. It's been quite a while since we've gotten a question
Yeah,
about Triple H.
yeah.
How did you get Triple H into shape during WrestleMania season? What was the approach compared to, say, a usual bodybuilder with more time in their hands to meal prep, etc.?
Well, he has the benefit of having chefs and people prepare his meals for him. So whatever I tell him to eat, he can eat. He was a big ketogenic diet guy. He liked it. He didn't want to eat carbs. Yeah, I would pepper carbs in there because he had a fast metabolism, but he actually liked it when I would take the carbs away from him because he said it was much easier to travel without having to worry about carbs because he could bring nuts with him and jars of peanut butter and stuff like that and his shakes. When you have to make rice and potatoes, it's a pain in the neck. But when you're on the road, it's easier to do the protein and fat. And so he would do that, but he's like a machine. He was like so diligent. If I told him to eat, dirt, he ate dirt. It was like he's not a difficult guy to work with. Some people have complicated schedules and they have a lot of excuses. He's like, whatever I need to eat, I'll eat. And he just followed it like he was in the military. So people like that are very easy to help. When I helped Stone Cold Steve Austin for a little while too, when he got in shape for his TV show, he was also like that. He's like, I'll eat whatever you tell me to eat, because he likes to drink whiskey at night. So I said, you can't drink whiskey. He goes on this diet. He said, you're going to screw the diet up. He's like, all right, fine. He goes, for the next 8 weeks, I won't drink any whiskey. So, that was tough for him because he drinks whiskey every day. So, you have to know who you're working with, but top elite, athletes, and I consider the WWE guys elite athletes because the way they train, and I still train a few of these guys now. They'll do what you tell them to do because their job depends on it, their livelihood depends on it, their persona depends on it, and it's fun to work with those guys. So because they get it, you know what I mean? They just want knowledge, and they'll do what you say. And Triple H was no different.
Let's go to Jose Luis Ravello. What about captopril? Has other enhancing factors other than lowering BP, as noted in the anabolic reference back in the day?
Oh, captopril. Yeah, it's a crappy blood pressure medication. It's an old blood pressure medication. It really doesn't work that well. Today, and I've said this a million times, but it warrants saying again. I believe the ACE inhibitors are the best blood pressure medications. They work very similar to the angiotensin receptor blockers, like telmisartan, valsartan, which are the newer ones. But even I talk to my cardiologist all the time, who's a bodybuilder. And he agrees, he's the one who actually told me. He just thinks that there's a lot more research with the ACE inhibitors. They've been around a lot longer. They seem to protect the kidneys better. I think for bodybuilding purposes, bodybuilders get better results with ACE inhibitors than the angiotensin receptor blockers, because the ACE inhibitors are inhibiting an enzyme system that's creating a cascade of other stuff, whereas the angiotensin receptor blockers are just they're just blocking the receptor. So you're still getting that cascade of enzymes that are being produced. So it'd be like comparing Nolvadex and Arimidex. Arimidex would be similar to like an ACE inhibitor, whereas Nolvadex, which blocks receptors, is like an angiotensin receptor blocker. Which one blocks estrogen better? Arimidex, right? The aromatase inhibitor. So I like to inhibit the enzyme system. I think it works more effectively, and bodybuilders get better blood pressure control. I don't want to say names, but I've been on the phone with doctors and the bodybuilders at theirs, and I've helped them because a lot of these doctors don't know what to do. They'll put the bodybuilders on calcium channel blockers. They'll put them on diuretics. The two worst things to put a bodybuilder on. You don't want to inhibit calcium. Calcium causes muscle contraction, and you don't want to give bodybuilders diuretics on a regular basis because it messes up their electrolytes and it dehydrates them, and then they can't train as effectively. So the ACE inhibitors are still the best as far as I'm concerned.
Let's go to Calvin 8. Is there a chance that and obviously you do talk your pregnancy protocol, is there a chance that you won't recover in terms of fertility after using testosterone and other compounds / esters? Have you seen any cases where it's just they're far too deep and there is no coming back?
Well, I always tell people, I use myself as an example because I don't like to use other people, but I did steroids for 13 years. I was on HRT after that for 10 years, and then I stopped, and I had 3 kids. So it works. It's very funny, but It's never not worked. Okay. The only time the pregnancy protocol, and I give it out for free, you can contact me at my huge 285 at AOL.com email. I'll send it to you for free. I'm probably responsible for several thousand babies now in the bodybuilding world. But the funny thing is that it's never not worked. And the only time that it wouldn't work would be, number one, if there's something wrong with the woman and it's not the man's fault, or if there's something wrong with the man's testicles. Like, in other words, sometimes people have a problem where they just don't produce sperm. You know, they didn't even know it, and they have like a inherent problem. I haven't run across anyone like that I've helped, but it seems like everyone I've given the protocol to has worked, and they have gotten, you know, their girl pregnant. And I'm happy to say, even some of the people that went to fertility clinics and paid a lot of money, and the doctor said, "Well, there's nothing we can do," and then they did my protocol and it worked. So it works. You know, it's a science experiment. Life is a science experiment. Okay. That's why I say that, you know, bodybuilding is really just nothing more than a big science experiment. And if you know all the right rules to follow in terms of how to eat, the supplementation aspect of it, the PED, you know, aspect of it, the training, the rest and recovery, anyone can put muscle on and anyone can get lean. How you look when you do that is going to be determined by your genetics, but anyone can do the science experiment. You know, anyone can mix the stuff in the beaker and get the reaction that you want. It's just a matter how diligent you are at applying it, and then of course how the ultimate end product is going to look is going to depend on how, you know, what your genetics are. But with the baby protocol, you know, if it's a sperm issue, it absolutely will increase your sperm number. It doesn't matter how long you've been on steroids. It doesn't matter how much you've taken. As long as your sperm, as long as your testicles work, you know, genetically they're not damaged in any way, and you're not going to damage them from taking steroids. That's for sure. They'll turn back on and they'll produce testosterone and they'll produce sperm. So it will work. I promise you.
Let's take so the two-part question from Kelvin had a question earlier. For one, why do you get thick skin while on tren? And the second, and that was one you addressed a long time ago. Why do you stink more when you're on anabolics?
Well, let me address the first thing. I don't believe that you get. My skin was like paper thin when I was on Trenbolone. There's no scientific reason why you would get thick skin. Steroids don't thicken your skin. Getting fatter thickens your skin, but Trenbolone does not make you fat. So some people do hold water from it. My experience is I didn't really hold any water from Trenbolone, but you can hold water from anabolics in general. You know, usually when you're taking Trenbolone, you're combining it with testosterone. So some people are just water buffaloes, and so they look a little thicker. You know, some people also hold a lot of body fat, and then they put water retention on top of that body fat. It looks terrible. But as you know, I'm super lean. I was always lean, especially the second half of my career. I don't think I ever got fat. And anytime I took anabolics, I just looked even leaner, and my skin got thinner looking. So yeah, I'm not really buying into that thicker thing. As far as odor, whenever you take any kind of male hormone, whether it be testosterone, Deca, Trenbolone, all these things, they increase the production of sebum, which is, you know, through the sebaceous glands in your skin. And the more sebum and sebation and oils you produce through the skin, because the body's trying to detoxify itself, bacteria grow in your skin, and they use those oils as a fuel source. They ferment it, and that's the smell you're smelling. So yeah, you get stinkier the more steroids you take usually. And even I notice it with women, you know, and I always, you know, it's an embarrassing topic, but I'll say it anyway. You know, a lot of women bodybuilders are smelly because they're using female deodorants that would normally be good enough, but they're taking male hormones. So they're producing like the male equivalents of sweat. So you really have to use like a men's deodorant if you're a woman and you're on anabolics, because otherwise you will walk around that gym stinky, I promise you. And people will be afraid to tell you, but you stink. And I smell it. I smell some of these girls at the gym. They are stinky. You got to use a man's deodorant, you know, when you're doing that, because it's not, the women's deodorants are just not strong enough. And they're made for women's, you know, and the hormonal makeup of a woman, but not someone who's on, like, even if you're only just taking Anavar and Winstrol, it's going to increase your sweat production quite a bit, and so you got to use a stronger deodorant.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder, yesterday's episode of the After Hours podcast, this weekend's episode of Heavy Muscle Radio, a recap of the 2024 Tampa Pro, which saw John De La Rosa win and qualify for the Olympia. And then, of course, this weekend, coverage of the 2024 Texas Pro, myself, Chris Aceto, and now we know Armin Adibi, who will be competing at this show. We'll be sure to do wrap-up videos of prejudging, of finals, and see if we can grab some interviews along the way. But we'll have comprehensive coverage of the Texas Pro this weekend. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or any of our contest coverage like the one this upcoming weekend. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.